Thank you, Nina Enrique. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News on tonight's headlines. Tensions have escalated in the South China Sea following a recent incident involving the Chinese Coast Guard and Philippine research vessels. Now, on Wednesday, the Philippine Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources reported that its vessel, the BRP Datu Sanday, was sideswiped and targeted with water cannons by a Chinese Coast Guard ship.
And I do have 2 certificates of recognition for your church, and also for Brother Eduardo V. Madalo. So just
today, I do have a certificate of commendation, but it is for Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, Executive Minister, Iglesia ni Cristo.
This certificate of recognition to Iglesia ni Cristo, Ecclesiastical Districts of Bay Area and Silicon Valley.
And the news starts now. Tensions have escalated in the South China Sea following a recent incident involving the Chinese Coast Guard and Philippine research vessels. Now, on Wednesday, the Philippine Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources reported that its vessel, the BRP Datu Sanday, was sideswiped and targeted with water cannons by a Chinese Coast Guard ship near Sandy Cay, a disputed reef close to the T2 Island. Now, this marks the first time water cannons have been used against Philippine vessels in this area.
Well, this is the first time that the Philippine vessel, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, experienced water cannon sa loob ng territorial sea ng Pag-asa, habang ang ating BFAR vessel ay nagkakandak ng marine scientific research patungo sa Pag-asa K2. But despite of that, the Philippine government, kasamang Philippine Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources is still going to pursue ang ating marine scientific research dito sa mga Pag-asa case. It will not prevent the Philippine government in conducting MSR within the territorial sea of Pag-asa. And I would also like to add na bukod sa harassment ng dalawang China Coast Guard vessel ng 21559 and 5103, the PLA Navy helicopter was also launched. Nagpalipad din sila at a very low altitude of less than 500 meters sa ibabaw ng ating mga BFAR vessel. I think the message of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, the Philippine Coast Guard, and all government agencies pagdating sa usapin ng Pag-asa K is that it will never stop our government in conducting all this marine scientific research, and that we have sovereignty over these waters, and that despite of their harassment and bullying, ang atin pong BFAR, ang Coast Guard ay patuloy pa rin pong gagawin ng marine scientific research dito, and it will not stop us in doing this operation. Well, I don't think that whatever actions that we're going to do, it will stop the harassment of the Chinese government. Despite of whatever actions that we carry out there, alam naman natin na haharasin tayo ng China. So it's not our burden na mahinto itong ganitong harassment. It's because we're only on the receiving end of their harassment.
In a devastating incident on Wednesday night, 2 Israeli embassy staff members, a young couple on the verge of engagement, were fatally shot outside the Lillian and Albert Small Capital Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. Take a look. The victims had just attended a young diplomat's reception hosted by the American Jewish Committee.
The suspect has been tentatively identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, Illinois. Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security.
Upon arrest, he reportedly chanted,
"Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Suggesting a possible political or ideological motive. Authorities recovered the weapon used and confirmed that Rodriguez had no prior criminal record. Israeli Ambassador Yeshua Leiter shared that the male victim had recently purchased an engagement ring, intending to propose in Jerusalem the following week.
The couple that was gunned down tonight in the name of Free Palestine. It's a young couple about to be engaged. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. They were a beautiful couple who came to enjoy an evening in Washington's Cultural Center.
The attack has drawn widespread condemnation. U.S. President Donald Trump labeled it a heinous anti-Semitic act and emphasized that such hatred has no place in the United States. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed profound sorrow. He has ordered enhanced security measures for Israeli diplomatic missions worldwide.
Last night in Washington, something horrific happened. A brutal terrorist shot in cold blood a young, beautiful couple, Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Milgram. Yaron had just bought an engagement ring for Sarah. He was planning to give it to her in Jerusalem next week. They were planning to start a new and happy life together. Well, that tragically did not happen. Yaron and Sarah weren't the victims of a random crime. The terrorist who cruelly gunned them down did so for one reason and one reason alone. He wanted to kill Jews. And as he was taken away, he chanted, "Free Palestine." This is exactly the same chant we heard on October 7th.
Tensions flared at the White House today as U.S. President Donald Trump confronted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa with allegations of mass killings and land seizures targeting white people in South Africa. Now, the exchange took place during a televised Oval Office meeting, quickly shifted from cordial discussions to a sharp debate. President Trump opening the meeting by expressing concerns about the situation in South Africa.
A lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa.
Trump then directly addressed the issue of alleged persecution and land seizures.
But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on. Generally, they're white farmers and they're fleeing South Africa.
South Africa vehemently rejects the allegation that white people are disproportionately targeted by crime. President Ramaphosa responded directly to Trump's claims.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now been utilized.
The farmers are not black.
You are raising concerns, and these are concerns that we are willing to talk to you about.
The scene was reminiscent of Trump's February ambush of Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky.
You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. Turn the lights down.
On Wednesday, Trump showed a video and held up printed articles purporting to show evidence for his claims, which South Africa maintains are unfounded. Ramaphosa stated he had not seen the video before and would like to investigate its location. South Africa, which became a multi-party democracy in 1994, after centuries of discrimination, rejects Trump's allegations. Ramaphosa reiterated this stance.
I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me.
In recent months, Trump has also criticized South Africa's new land reform law aimed at redressing the injustices of apartheid. The law allows for expropriations without compensation in the public interest, though no such expropriation has yet occurred and any order can be challenged in court. Trump has also criticized South Africa's genocide court case against Israel. The Trump administration has previously canceled aid to South Africa, expelled its ambassador, and offered refuge to white minority Afrikaners based on racial discrimination claims that Pretoria dismisses as baseless.
In fact, the reality of violent crime in South Africa is that white South Africans are significantly less likely to be victims of violent crime, and that's true whether they live on farms or whether they live in cities or suburban areas. The modal victim of violent crime in South Africa is a Black person. And in fact, we can see this in any number of police statistics, both provided by the South African Police Service and international observers. So it's not widely accepted. It's not even widely accepted by the groups that have been most at the forefront of this campaign trying to get the attention of policymakers abroad. So groups like AfriForum, groups like the Urania movement have explicitly said they are not out here propagating a narrative of white genocide. When we see the white genocide talking point, it primarily comes from either paramilitary groups in South Africa or international activists. Most famously, probably, and most publicly, Elon Musk has been a major proponent of this, and we saw this in not only his own personal statements, but allegations that he manipulated the Grok algorithm to sort of foreground this narrative of white genocide, but it is not actually something that people in South Africa take seriously at all.
Staying in the U.S., a congressional hearing erupted into a contentious exchange as Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen confronted U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The already tense session took a sharply personal turn when Van Hollen declared he regretted his vote to confirm Rubio, unleashing a torrent of accusations regarding the administration's foreign policy on issues from Sudan and Ukraine to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The heated back and forth, punctuated by personal jabs and the chairman's attempts to restore order, highlighted the deep divisions in Washington's approach to global affairs. Take a look.
We are engaged in the world, but we're going to be engaged in a world that makes sense and that's smart.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tuesday insisted that the Trump administration was not withdrawing from the world. That's as Rubio fought criticism by some members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee of the administration's cuts to foreign aid and diplomatic budgets.
You're not going to like all the changes, but I want you to know what the intent of the changes are. It is not to dismantle American foreign policy, and it is not to withdraw us from the world. Because I just hit 18 countries in 18 weeks. That doesn't sound like much of a withdrawal.
Rubio said that many of the programs he has cut did not serve U.S. interests, and that Washington would remain the world's most generous donor of humanitarian aid.
I didn't ask.
Senator, please let the Secretary have.
In a sometimes feisty first testimony as Secretary of State, Rubio was challenged over his role in the administration's crackdown on immigration, Trump's engagement with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the decision to prioritize the resettlement in the U.S. of white South Africans versus refugees from elsewhere. Here's Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen.
While you've turned away from a genocide in Sudan and invented one in South Africa, you teamed up with President Trump to throw the Ukrainian people under the bus and have been played like a fiddle by Vladimir Putin. Of course, Donald Trump not only said he would end the war in Ukraine on day one, he also said he would end the war in Gaza on day one. And yet last week you were all running around to Gulf states giving away very sensitive American AI and ships technology, but doing nothing to end the war in Gaza and get the remaining hostages returned. You know that for 78 days, the Netanyahu government did not allow a scrap of food to enter Gaza to reach over 2 million civilians. 57 children have died from malnutrition so far, and more than 14,000 children are in imminent danger of dying of starvation. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may, sir.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement,
Mr.
Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask.
Senator, please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well-
Your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr.
Secretary, please.
Well, I'd like to. I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation. I don't regret
Sudan, Mr.
psychosocial support services.
I raised
USAID.
Sudan, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond,
not
Mr.
Senator,
Chairman, or do I?
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes of
I chose
railing
to
on-
use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use my
suspend
time that way.
Secretary Rubio.
We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear in the days to come.
Mr.
You're going to see
Chairman,
who you went to
look,
defend.
I'm sorry,
Please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary
No.
Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments
Senator,
like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You've had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the
Senator-
United States because
Well,
he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? And they have to walk
Writing
through a
an
bunch of
op-ed
lunatics
to the
who are
top
here on the
newspapers
student visa.
disrupting the
Simple
foreign
as
policy
that.
of the United
I want to
States.
do more. I hope we can
That's
find more of these people.
pathetic, Mr.
In fact, the
Secretary.
other day, some guys led a riot. I forgot what university it was, and I asked, please, can you find the arrest records of all the people that were arrested at that riot at that camp?
On Russia, Rubio said Putin had not received any real concessions in the U.S. effort to initiate talks to end the war in Ukraine. In an exchange with Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Rubio defended Trump, saying he was trying to end the war.
And what the president's trying to do is end a war. He's trying to end a bloody, costly war that neither side can win,
I
and
think
people
we
are
all
dying every
support.
single day.
But-
And so, but this notion that I don't, what has Putin gained throughout this? He hasn't gotten a single concession. He hasn't gotten a single sanction lifted.
Republicans have praised Rubio, who has become a crucial figure in the Trump administration. He currently is also serving as Trump's acting national security advisor, the USAID administrator, and the acting archivist of the United States.
In a rare public admission of failure, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has condemned a major mishap during the launch of a new 5,000-ton naval destroyer at the northeastern port of Cheongjin. The vessel, part of Kim's ambitious naval modernization program, tipped over during the ceremony, crushing parts of its hull. Kim, who was present at the event, labeled the incident a criminal act.
After watching the whole course of the accident, the respected comrade Kim Jong-un made a stern assessment saying that it was a serious accident and criminal act caused by absolute carelessness, irresponsibility and unscientific empiricism which is out of the bounds of possibility and could not be tolerated.
He has ordered the ship to be restored before a key workers' party meeting in June and indicated that those responsible will face consequences. South Korea's military reported that the damaged warship remains lying sideways in the water.
The intelligence agencies of South Korea and the United States have been tracking and monitoring the launch movements of a large vessel at North Korea's Cheongjin port in advance and assessed that the side launch has failed.
Meanwhile, analysts now suggest the incident, which occurred during the rarely attempted side launch, involved another 5,000-ton Choyeon-class destroyer, a new class of vessel critical to Pyongyang's ambition to carry dozens of missiles. Take a look.
I presume this incident occurred because North Korea has a lack of experience in launching large vessels of this scale using side launch methods. The fact that this kind of accident occurred and became public could be a deeply humiliating event for North Korea. Therefore, it is likely that North Korea will attempt to showcase the launch of another Cho-Hyun-class warship within the year. Moreover, the regime is also expected to unveil and flaunt other weapons systems it had promised to develop during the 8th Party Congress before the year is out.
Meanwhile, North Korea fired multiple unidentified cruise missiles on Thursday morning. That's according to South Korea's Ministry of National Defense. The launches took place around 9 a.m. from the Sondok area in South Hamgyong province, with the missiles reportedly heading towards the East Sea. South Korean and U.S. intelligence authorities are now analyzing the details of the launch, including the number and type of missiles involved. The incident comes just a day after North Korea suffered a setback during the launch of a new naval destroyer, which was described by state media as a serious accident. Military officials in Seoul say they're closely monitoring North Korean activities and maintaining readiness to respond to any further provocations. After 3 years of negotiations, the World Health Organization has finalized a new plan designed to improve global readiness for the next pandemic. The agreement seeks to ensure that essential drugs, therapeutics, and vaccines are accessible worldwide when a new health crisis emerges. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
The pact aims to ensure that drugs, therapeutics, and vaccines are globally accessible when the next pandemic hits. It requires participating manufacturers to allocate 20% of their vaccines, medicines, and tests to the WHO during a pandemic to ensure poorer countries have access. WHO Chief Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus calls the treaty a gift to the world.
The point is the people of our world. This is about making the world safer for them and their children and grandchildren, for us, for our children and our grandchildren.
Tedros says there's been a lot of misinformation surrounding pandemic planning. He's quick to dispel myths that the deal will allow the WHO to interfere in member nations' affairs.
It will not infringe on national sovereignty in any way, nor give the WHO Secretariat power to impose mask or vaccine mandate or lockdowns. Anyone who says it will is clearly mistaken.
But Tedros doesn't expect the conspiracy theories surrounding pandemic preparedness to go away.
You're all aware of the torrent of mis and disinformation that we have faced through the negotiation of this agreement. And although you have now adapted it, deception and distortion will continue.
Notably absent from the pandemic planning is the United States, after President Donald Trump began a year-long process of withdrawing the U.S. from the WHO. And that has some of the organization's members wondering about the effectiveness of the accord. On Tuesday, Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. urged other countries to also leave the Global Health Organization. He claims the WHO is mired in conflicts of interest and international power politics.
We've already been in contact with like-minded countries, and we encourage others to consider joining us. We want to free international health cooperation from the straitjacket of political interference by corrupting influences of the pharmaceutical companies, of adversarial nations, and their NGO proxies.
Without the United States and its hundreds of millions of dollars of funding, the WHO faces challenging times. On Tuesday, China, Qatar, Switzerland, and others opened their countries' vaults and pledged more than $170 million in additional funding. Member nations have also agreed to higher fees to help offset the loss of American dollars. Still, Tedros says dozens of countries will suffer the consequences of a funding shortfall.
In at least 70 countries, patients are missing out on treatments. Health facilities have closed. Health workers have lost their jobs. And people face increased out-of-pocket health spending.
And while it looks like the U.S. will exit the organization next January, things could change. Just days after saying the U.S. would leave, Trump muddied the waters by saying, well, he might reconsider rejoining the agency if its staff cleans it up. Like with many of Trump's other decisions, confusion abounds. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
Devastating flash flooding has hit Australia's southeast coast, claiming 3 lives and leaving tens of thousands of residents isolated. And officials warn there's more heavy rain on the way over the next 24 hours.
3 deaths so far. We've got another man missing, all in very tragic circumstances. And I suppose from our point of view, we're just encouraging people, please do not enter these floodwaters. It is a really dangerous, once in a lifetime event. And there's been some tragedy surrounding this death. We've actually had around 590 flood rescues during the course of this operation. So it's a significant number of people that have needed to be rescued. Obviously there's been fast flowing waters, and some of those have been done by helos, as we've seen in the media. But some significant rescues have been made. But unfortunately we've also lost a number of lives.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. The spirit of service is spreading. The Iglesia ni Cristo's Care for Humanity event is crossing borders, bringing its outreach efforts to Florida, USA. After visiting Jacksonville, the mission makes a significant stop in Orlando, Florida, aiming to provide much-needed support to the city's homeless population. Take a look.
This is probably one of the best places that someone homeless can pick. Sometimes this is the best that you've got. Sleeping on a bus stop leaves you wide open.
Abandoned spaces like this offer more than concrete and quiet for people like Angie. It's the best she can find while surviving alone on the streets of Jacksonville.
It's difficult. It's really difficult.
Once homeless, Angie's now taking steps to rebuild her life here at Sulzbacher Village, a transition housing facility for women and children fighting to stay off the streets.
I didn't have a strong support system, and I would work a couple jobs at a time. It never really amounted to what I needed.
So the face of homelessness has changed. Somebody can't afford where they're living anymore, and they don't have a support system, so they end up in homelessness.
Just as the struggle for stability grows heavier.
But I appreciate the Church of Christ coming. I didn't realize the presence that they had kind of all over the world. Thank you so much to the church.
Grateful for every
struggles. And at the Boys and Girls Club, families affected by rising inflation received crucial support during another Care for Humanity event.
An event like today definitely helped a lot of people because it saved them from having to go far to buy groceries. It definitely helped save them in their financial part. And part of what the church does, and part of what this event is to care for humanity, care for people.
Through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation is able to help our fellow men. And so here today in Orlando, here in the neighborhood of Taft, serving the neighbors and also those who are clients of the Boys and Girls Club, uniting also with all of our other brethren and the church administration, we are giving away grocery packs to those who are in need.
An action of faith, of love, that the Church of Christ continues to fulfill, because this is a church that cares. From Jacksonville, Florida, Michael Robinson, U.S. Care for Humanity, special coverage.
Meanwhile, in San Jose, California, in Silicon Valley, a powerful spirit of community and service was also on full display. The Iglesia ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, hosted its Care for Humanity event, bringing together thousands for a massive community outreach and medical mission. Take a look. The event, co-organized by the Iglesia ni Cristo Silicon Valley and Bay Area Ecclesiastical Districts and the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, offered a wide range of services, from medical checkups and blood drives to the distribution of care packages. This effort deeply resonated with attendees and garnered significant recognition from various officials.
Well, this is really touching, especially when I hear the singers singing Unstoppable and those songs. So, I can feel the love and energy and passion here.
Donna Roscoe, an Iglesia ni Cristo member and our U.S. correspondent, spearheaded the invitation to the Philippine Consulate in San Francisco. The event drew strong support and official recognition from local and state leaders.
And I want to bring a certificate of recognition for the California State Assembly to Iglesia ni Cristo for your incredible work in providing for care for humanity. I just want to say is that as we work with so many of our colleagues up and down the state to provide so much relief to the families who are affected by the LA fires and so many other tragedies and disasters across the state of California, I'm very glad that this committee comes together to provide care to those who need it. So on behalf of the California State Assembly, I want to provide you the certificate of recognition to the church. Thank you.
So I am just very moved by the humanitarian work your church do for our community. So I just want to thank you for all you do. And I do have 2 certificates of recognition for your church, and also for Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. So just want to thank him for his leadership, for leading this church and upholding and uplifting the spirit of our community and providing service all our community needs. So thank you so much.
I will represent Mayor Lisa Gilmore from the city of Santa Clara within my district. She's very sorry that she couldn't be here today, but Mayor Gilmore has a certificate of special mayoral recognition for Iglesia Ni Cristo.
Today I do have a certificate of commendation, but it is for Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, Executive Minister, Iglesia Ni Cristo. The City of Daly City appreciates your steadfast commitment to upholding Christian values through the acts of compassion and service. Your leadership in guiding Iglesia Ni Cristo and extending help to those in need across the globe through the Care for Humanity outreach program exemplifies the spirit of faith in action. Your unwavering dedication to humanitarian work has made a meaningful difference in the lives of many, regardless of background, and continues to inspire hope and unity in communities all around the world.
We would like to present this certificate of recognition to your congregations, and if you may allow me to read this certificate of recognition to Iglesia Ni Cristo, ecclesiastical districts of Bay Area and Silicon Valley, is being presented to your congregation for spearheading the Care for Humanity Lingap sa Mamamayan Community Outreach and Medical Mission on this day, 10th of May 2025 in San Jose, California. Through its commitment to follow Christ in words and in deeds, and efforts to foster unity and cooperation within the Filipino-American community, the Iglesia Ni Cristo continues to be a positive and transformative force for good for the Filipino-American community. Signed this day, 10th day of May 2025 by Consul General Neil Frank Ferrer. So thank you po again and congratulations.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great weekend. Good night.